Okay, so now I'm going to go over lighting, and I'll just use this character to talk about it. I'm not going to go over it in tremendous detail. I find that it's not necessary during this class anyway, and it's not too hard to dig into it further on your own. But basically, to create lights, all you need to do is go to your create menu, go to lights, and you have different kinds of lights. You have an ambient light, directional light, point light, spotlight, area light, volume light. So starting from the top, the ambient light is just what it says it is. It creates a volume in which everything inside that volume gets lit just a little bit, or even a lot if you tell it to. So that's kind of like you're trying to use those sort of lights to try to simulate the light that's bouncing around in the room. It's bouncing off the wall, it's bouncing off the ceiling, bouncing off the desks. And so the things that don't have direct light are receiving some ambient light. So you don't have any absolute blacks if you use one of these. The directional light is made to simulate light that's from a very far off source, like the sun or the moon. So and I'll go ahead and create one of these because you'll need to create one. So looks like I'm not showing them right now. So if I go to show, I am showing them. Why isn't it showing here? That's weird. Forgetting something. I'm having a brain fart right now. Let's see. That should show up by default. There's my directional light. Shape says it's visible, but it's not showing. Why is it not showing? Huh. That's weird. Let me create a new scene real quick and see if there's something wrong with my scene. File, create, directional light. Yeah, there it is. I don't know why it wasn't showing in the other scene. So I guess I'll just use a cube. Okay, so there's my cube. And I'm going to use lights. And I can press 7 on my keyboard to see what it looks like with the scene being lit. And the directional lights, it does not matter where they're at in the scene. In fact, if you look at the cube while I'm moving this around, you can see that its shading on the cube does not change. Doesn't matter where it's at. So just put it somewhere convenient. Most people leave it at the origin of the scene. But what does matter is which direction it's rotated. So I'm going to just set this to local. And now I can see the shading on my cube changing. Now, when you're trying to aim lights at the objects that you want them to light up, one of the easiest ways to do that is if you right click on it. Let's see. It's been a while since I've done this. Let's see. There's a way to look through the light. That's what I'm forgetting. Well, I'll have to come back to that. Anyway, you can look through the light as if it's a camera. Okay. Anyway, so that's your directional light, and you're probably going to have one of these to represent the daylight, whether it's cloudy or not. you're going to need one. Okay, and you can change the color here and just pick whatever color you want to. And then you can also change the intensity. So if I change the intensity up very high, then where that light is pointing at the cube, it gets completely blown out. You're too close to the sun if you're doing that. So keep that down in a reasonable range. Now, another thing you need to be aware of is these lights are going to compound each other. So if I select this directional light, press Control D to duplicate it, now there's two directional lights, right? Both of them at an intensity of 1.579. So the cube is going to be lit that much more. And I could rotate that so that it creates some lighting from the opposite direction if I want to. Okay. Okay, so that's your directional lights, and you can choose the colors and all that. Okay, so there it is with some color. Now we can do a, it's bugging me that I can't remember how to look through the light. I'm going to pause the video for a second because it's bugging me and I want to figure that out, show you guys. Okay, so I found the look through selected option. It's inside the panels menu for the pane, and look through selected. And now wherever I move my I'm not actually looking through a camera anymore. I'm looking through my light. And that can be useful to make sure that I'm pointed where I think that I'm pointed. Okay, and then to switch back to my normal view and go to perspective camera, and then there's that light that I newly positioned. Okay, so anyway, that's directional lights. That's how to look through a light. Let's go to display or create lights. We have a point light. This is like your normal incandescent light bulb, maybe, or yeah, your incandescent light bulb. And let me move that. This one, it does matter where it exists. In fact, if I hide these directional lights, you can see that it matters where it exists. Okay, and it has similar attributes. Has the color, it has the intensity, but it has a new attribute called rate of decay or decay rate. And right now it's set to no decay. But I can tell it to fall off linearly. So like the further away it gets, the less bright it will be. And I could tell it how fast to fall off. So there's a linear decay, there's a quadratic decay, or a cubic decay. So most of the time the linear is fine. Every now and then quadratic's useful. And a lot of times you just don't want any decay because it's just too much to have to think about, and your shot is static, so you don't really care too much. That being that sort of picky is for later. Okay, so there's that, and just to show you, it's emitting light in every direction. Okay, now the only light I'm going to show you, maybe there'll be two more. If you go to lights, I'm going to create a spotlight. And this one in particular is useful to look through. So I'm going to move it back. I'm going to turn out this point light, hiding it. Now this is kind of like a light that has a reflector on it, like your flashlight. So it has a penumbra angle, and So for me to show you this one, let me create a plane. And I'm going to increase the size of that plane a lot. I'm going to select this light. I'm going to go to panels. I'm going to look through it. So now I'm looking down through it. And this circle is the light. And I can change the angle of the penumbrum, and I can see that creates a fall off effect for that light. You change the cone angle as well and make it affect a larger or a smaller area. Now, sometimes this makes more sense if you see this. So the cone angle is there. It's changing the angle of the cone. And the penumbra is kind of the dithering effect around the borders of the light. Okay. Then you can tell it to drop off as well. And you have your same decay attributes. Okay. Now, sometimes when you're working with the light, it's nice if you press T on your keyboard. It will switch you into what we call the universal manipulator. For lights, that means that you'll have a transform for it to aim to. So you can leave your light where it's at and change where it's pointing by changing this bottom locator, bottom transform. You can click on this little dial here and change what sort of attributes maybe you need to adjust on the light. So each time I click this, it gives me a new setting. I can edit. Okay, and there's all kinds of stuff to be done. Mostly, I feel like it's safer if you stick in the attribute editor for adjusting your lights. Okay, so that's your spotlight. And then one last light is the area light. An area light is kind of like if you were in an interior space and there was a window or a door that was open to the outside world. So it's really bright outside, but it's not so bright inside, right? Well, the area light can simulate that. Now, the thing about area lights is that they are very heavy for Maya to calculate, especially at render time. And so this is what Maya thinks it would look like if I had a window this shape. Let's say I had a wall right there, and this is the light that it would put off. Okay, so here's a neat effect. Let me go online real quick. Black, let's see, grayscale. This is bonus. Worst. And we'll just grab this one for fun. Let's do the desktop. Okay. Now, just like we did with our textures, we can assign a color, a texture to this color. So I'm going to tell it there's a file, navigate to that file. I put it on my desktop, I think, because I was being lazy, or so I thought I did. Let me go back to no, I put it on my E drive. Let me drop that on my desktop. Cut. Cut. Desktop. Paste. Did I grab the right thing? Must have grabbed the wrong thing. Cut. On my desktop. What did I do? Users. Oh, brother. Desktop. Okay. Paste. Okay. So now back into Maya. Let me go to my desktop. There's this dark forest texture. Okay. Now the light is going to put output. It's going to use this texture. But the hard part about using textures in your lighting is you can't see them until you render. So let's see how this works. So I render. Yeah, there it is. So let me zoom out a little bit so we can see it a little better. So now my texture is being reflected as part of my light source. And in fact, all lights can do this. So if you needed to cast some sort of special shadow, then it's really easy to do. Just assign a texture to your color attribute. Okay, so that's the area light. And the volume light, that kind of, yeah, I'm not going to explain that one. It's hard to know what the difference is between at least for me, I've never really figured out what's the difference between the ambient light and the volume light. But there's a difference. Not sure what that is. Anyway, so that's all your lights. So as an overview of good lighting, typically you have your key light, you have your bounce light, and it's been a while since I've talked the lingo. Key, the bounce, and rim. Okay, so if you want to do good lighting, then at least on your main character, you have your key light, which is your direct light, your bounce light, which is that light should be bouncing off of and kind of giving the opposite side of in this case, a character, some lighting information, and then the rim light that gives the borders a little bit more interesting look. And so anyway, light your scenes appropriately and make sure that your main character is lit so that he has the most emphasis in your scene. Okay, and then the only thing we really have left to cover is rendering now in general. Anyway.